All right, let's talk about India. It's on this incredible path to becoming an economic superpower. But what's the cost? We're going to dive into this massive balancing act, this high-wire act, really, between explosive growth and protecting the environment in one of the most dynamic countries on Earth.
And this is the big question, right? It's not just some abstract policy debate. We're talking about the fundamental challenge for modern India. How do you lift hundreds of millions of people out of poverty without completely trashing the place they call home? This tension, this push and pull, has literally shaped decades of Indian law.
So, the guiding light for this whole thing, the big idea, is something called sustainable development. Now, this term was officially cooked up back in 1987, and the idea is actually pretty simple, but it's also incredibly powerful. It's just, look, let's meet our needs today, but let's not mess things up so badly that our kids and grandkids can't meet theirs. Simple as that.
Okay, but this whole journey, this push for better laws, it wasn't just some academic exercise. No, it was forged in fire, literally born from a terrible national tragedy.
You see, for a long time, India's approach to environmental law was, well, it was a mess. It was just a patchwork of rules, super reactive. A problem would pop up, they'd slap a legal Band-Aid on it. Kind of like plugging leaks in a dam one at a time, instead of, building a better dam.
And this timeline, it tells a really powerful story. You can see the exact moment everything changed. In 1972, you have the Stockholm Declaration, which kind of planted the first seeds. But then, 1984, the Bhopal gas tragedy, one of the worst industrial disasters in history. That wasn't just a wake-up call. It was a seismic shock that completely and fundamentally reshaped everything.
So out of that tragedy, India started building a real comprehensive environmental rulebook. Let's dig into what the core laws actually look like.
Okay, so at the core of this new system were two big laws, the Water Act and the Air Act. And what's interesting is they're almost like mirror images of each other. They both set up these powerful state pollution control boards. And if you look, their powers are basically the same. They can set standards, they can go inspect factories, and they can bring the hammer down with serious penalties. The whole point was to have a consistent, powerful way to police the two most important things, our water and our air.
And this is absolutely crucial. Look at this permit process. It's a total shift in thinking. It is proactive, not reactive. An industry has to get permission, consent to establish, before they even lay the first brick. And then they need a second permission, consent to operate, before they can flip a single switch. The whole system is designed to build safety in from the very beginning, instead of chasing disasters after they happen.
Then in 1986 came the big one, the Environment Protection Act. And the best way to think about this is like a giant umbrella law that covers everything. It gave the central government these sweeping powers to make specific rules for a huge range of problems. We're talking waste management, environmental impact studies, even protecting the coastlines. It's the law that holds all the other laws together.
And that umbrella law allows for some really clever modern ideas. Like this one, Extended Producer's Responsibility, or EPR. This is brilliant. It totally flips the script on who's responsible for waste. Instead of it being on you and me to figure out what to do with that plastic bottle or old phone, EPR says, nope, the company that made it is responsible for its entire life, all the way to its final disposal. It puts the responsibility right back where it started.
But here's the thing, the laws on the books, that's only half the story. The other half, and you could argue it's just as powerful, comes from an unexpected place. India's incredibly active courts.
And this is where things get really wild. The Supreme Court of India looked at the constitutional right to life, a pretty basic right, and they did something revolutionary. They said, you know what? The right to life isn't just about not dying. It's about being able to live a life with dignity. And, they argued, you can't have a life with dignity if your air is toxic and your water is poisoned. So a clean environment became a fundamental human right.
And they didn't stop there. The court also locked in this idea called the polluter pays principle. It sounds simple, right? The polluter pays. But the consequences are huge. It means if a company pollutes, they're on the hook for two massive costs. First, they have to pay the people they hurt. But second, and this is key, they also have to pay to restore the environment back to the way it was. And that can cost a fortune. This is just an amazing bit of legal thinking. So the old rule, which came from the British, was called strict liability. It sounded tough, but it was full of loopholes and ways for companies to get off the hook. So the Indian Supreme Court said forget that. They created a brand new standard called absolute liability. And it's exactly what it sounds like. If you're in a hazardous business and something goes wrong, you are absolutely 100%, no excuses, no exceptions, responsible. Period.
Now, to make sure all these new rules actually had teeth, India did something really smart in 2010. They created a special court, the National Green Tribunal, or NGT. This is not your typical slow-moving court. It's designed to be fast, it's staffed with experts, and man, it can dish out some heavy-duty fines. But here's its real superpower. It can start a case all by itself, suo motu, just from reading a newspaper article. It doesn't need to wait for someone to file a complaint.
Okay, so we've got the rules and the courts, which are kind of like the stick, but that's only part of the solution. The really modern approach India is taking now is to bring in the carrot, using the power of the economy itself to push for a greener future.
So now we're seeing this whole new set of tools. Take a look at the PAT scheme. It's a really smart market-based system. Basically, if you're a company and you get super energy efficient, you earn these energy saving certificates. Then you can sell those certificates to a company that's lagging behind. So there's a real financial reward for being clean. Then you have things like green bonds, which raise money specifically for eco-friendly projects, and new rules that force big companies to report on their sustainability. You can see how the whole economic landscape starts to change.
And we're not talking about pocket change here. By just February 2020, green bonds in India had raised over $16 billion US. That is a ton of capital getting funneled directly into building a greener economy.
And on top of all that, it's not just about carrots. India's biggest 1,000 companies are now required by law to file a detailed report every year on their environmental and social impact. This is all about transparency. It means there's nowhere for them to hide. Their green or not-so-green record is out in the open for everyone to see.
So, after all that, after looking at the laws, the courts, the markets, we end up right back at that first big question. India has built this incredible, powerful toolkit. You've got strong laws, you've got activist judges, and you've got these clever new market tools. But is it going to be enough? Can a nation of 1.4 billion people really pull off this high-stakes balancing act? The stage is set, the tools are there, but the final chapter of this story is still being written.